Today, I want to talk about some of the struggles that international students go through when they come to Canada to study. If you are considering moving to Canada to study, then I guess you've heard of all the good stuff. That is one of the safest places to be. It has some of the best universities or colleges that you can study in. Canada is one of the safest nations and is very welcoming to students. Basically, like what most people say, is the land of milk and honey. And living here for some time now, I can confirm most of these things that you've heard of. Canada is a diverse country. It's a country that is welcoming to people. It's a country that has good standard of living, and it is quite open to everyone and anyone. But guess what? The decision to come and study in Canada has its own downsides. And what I realize is most people come here without knowing most of these things because all they hear about are just the good stuff. And even when they are doing their own research, they are just focused on finding out on just the good ones. They are not prepared for the downsides that comes along with the good stuff that they are hearing about. The truth is, many international students studying here deal with a lot of difficulties one way or the other. And even if you tell people, they are not even open to listen before they come here because all they care about is hearing about the good stuff. Focus on the dream to just move to Canada. So some move here without being prepared for the struggles that come with it. Even though this country is a country of milk and honey, guess what? The milk is still with the cow. So you have to go and milk it from that cow, and it wouldn't be easy. The honey is still in the beehive. So you have to be prepared to at least walk into the beehive and get stung to get the honey that is being spoken of. But people come here without the necessary preparation, and as a result, they go through different struggles. So in this video, I'll try to enlighten you on some of the struggles that I've seen people go through as students when they come here to study, so that at least you can arm yourself and prepare for them if your aim is to come to Canada to study. And I also try and look on the flip side of the story to see how you can prepare yourself to overcome it so that you come here fully prepared to be successful. These are just 5 major struggles or challenges that I have seen students or people go through when they come to Canada to study. There are a lot of them, but I'm going to focus on these 5 because I think these 5 are the ones that impact most of the people that I have interacted with or have seen most people struggle with it. The first one is academic struggle. What you don't find out till you get here is that the Canadian education system is full of writing papers, essays, group works, assignments, group projects. You might not even see some MCQs. Even if you find some MCQs, it might just be some 10 questions contributing to maybe 5 or some less than some 10 marks. And most students are not used to this kind of system. Most of us went through school with the same questions being repeated year after year. So there are people who went through the university for 4 good years. And guess what? All they were doing was multiple choice questions. So without even reading the book or even coming to class, you can just weave your way through the education system, graduate and get your certificate without having to apply the knowledge in any way. But guess what? The Canadian system is not like that. So most students end up struggling because they find difficulty in having to cope with this new kind of system. They are not used to it. They have spent their whole life having to study for a whole semester and sit for just one big exam, which contributes to almost all your marks. But if you come here, you find out that almost every week you have an assignment to submit. Today, as I'm sitting here shooting this video, I have 3 different assignments to submit, 1 project work to submit, and I still have to go to work and go to class. If you are not used to it, it will be difficult for you to cope with this kind of system. And there's one thing that they stress on here is originality. So you cannot go and copy somebody's assignment and submit as your own. That would be the quickest way to get yourself booted out of the school, because there are systems in place to try and find out whether you are copying somebody's work. Even if you quote a sentence from somebody's work, you have to reference the person's work. APA is enforced here. Even if you write the paper it has to go by the required standard of writing. You cannot just write anything and submit. Anything that you mention, you have to back it with facts. So you have to do the research. And most students who come here are not ready for this. And additionally, one other side of it that most people end up struggling with is especially for those who come here without English as their first language. They've passed the IELTS, they've gotten admission into the school, but they get here only to find out that whilst they are studying for the course, they now have to try and be studying for English too, because you get here and the English is at fast pace, the writing is at fast pace. So even though you studied English, you get here, you still have to now rewrite the English. I was shocked when I got here and the first classes that I was supposed to attend was a writing session. I remember telling the instructor that, what are you going to teach me about writing? I've done English my whole life. I've done a lot of writing. And I was shocked to find out that something that I have known my whole life. There's nothing like full stop in the English language. Just have to call it period. We mention full stop and everybody is laughing. So my advice is, if English is not your first language, try to improve on your English before you get here. Do some amount of reading. Even if English is your first language, try to brush up on your English before you land here and prepare yourself for the education system here. Learn to write papers, research documents, and all those things before you get here, because you are going to write a lot of those. And learn to do research on your own. As much as they encourage group work, they encourage individual originality when it comes to assignments and work. So this is one thing that you have to prepare yourself for. So if you are somebody who is not used to it and you plan on studying in Canada, this is the time to start brushing up on your writing skills, because you are going to need them. Number 2 is about finding a part-time job in Canada. Most students get here only to find out that it is very challenging to find part-time jobs when you come here to study as a student, especially when you don't do the necessary preparation before you land here in Canada. I have seen students land with the goal of, I will land and I'll find job quickly. They land here only to find out that the first couple of weeks, it is not easy to find a job. I still have people who are studying here who are still looking for a job and they are not finding. Different people go through this difficulty for different reasons. There are people who have some type of job in their mind that they are looking for, and that's all they want. So as a result, they are not finding it and they are not getting a job. There are those who get here fully prepared but still cannot find a job. As much as you see the jobs available everywhere, it might be difficult for you to find, because most of these employers might be looking for people who can work the full 8 to 5 hours. But as a student, most of your time might be in school, so you might not be available for those hours. And guess what? There are lots of students studying in Canada now, so there's competition for most of those jobs. So if you are not good with networking, or you haven't prepared your CV and resume very well and prepared yourself when it comes to applying for jobs, you might land here only to find out that it is not as easy as it is to find job the following day. You might find job, but it might not be the first weeks, it might not be the first month. It might be after the second month or third month. It is normal. It has happened to most people. Some of us were lucky, we got here and the following day we walked into a job. Somebody will say luck is a part of it, but guess what? Luck is when preparation meets an opportunity. My advice is prepare yourself before you get here, so that when the opportunity avails itself, you will be ready for it. The other thing too is sometimes some of these employers might be looking for some group of people who have a particular skill set which you might not have. Just yesterday, I spoke to one colleague who landed a couple of weeks ago, and she landed herself in a banking job, even as a student. What she did was she decided to network. The day she went into their bank to go and set up her account, she did her inquiries. She was told how to find a job in the bank, and as a result, she prepared herself. As soon as the opportunity became available, she was ready, put in the application, she was accepted, went through the interview, and she is starting her job very soon. But guess what? There are other people too who are still in the market looking for a job and they are not finding. My advice is to prepare yourself. That's why sometimes we advise that when you are coming in, make sure you have enough proof of funds, at least to last you, so that in case you don't find a job, you won't have to stress. But if you came in with limited proof of funds and your funds are depleting, you will be desperate. That's when you start doing some things that might end up putting you at risk. And sometimes when it comes to finding a job, that's where referrals will come into play. So networking becomes important, because guess what? Everybody is looking for those jobs. Even the people who are in those jobs are looking to expand their shifts. I will use myself as an example. The job that I'm working in, a colleague resigned. Normally what would have happened was you recruit somebody to replace that person. Guess what happened? Within us, people just split the shifts of the person among ourselves, because we all need extra shifts. So even though there's a vacancy, internally it has been filled without having to bring in a new person, because even those of us in the job, we need more shifts. So sometimes networking will be very important so that people can refer you for those jobs. I was able to get my job through Indeed. I applied, I was interviewed, did an in-person interview, and I got the job. The other 4 people who were also recruited along with me, guess how they found their job? One walked into the store on that day, and the manager was available on duty. He comes around 1 hour every day. That moment that the guy walked in, the manager was there, handed the CV. The manager was looking for people to employ. He was interviewed and he got his job. So there are different ways that you can get yourself into the job. My advice is, don't get frustrated. Keep pushing. See every refusal, rejection as just a delay, not a denial. Keep applying. The opportunity will always come up. Number 3 is exploitation by some employers. In Canada, the cost of living can be sometimes extremely high, depending on where you find yourself. When it comes to paying rent, groceries, transportation, insurance, utility, all those things can just add up quickly, and you'll be surprised the amount you'll be paying. And most students struggle as a result of this, because they come in not fully prepared. And you have some employers trying to take advantage of this situation, because they know as a student you might be in need of cash. So you are prepared to do everything and anything for some amount of money, so you can at least be able to cover your bills. So because they know you need the money, some of them can end up having to offer you an hourly wage which is below the minimum wage. The minimum wage is what has been agreed that at least you should be paid. But if as a student you don't know your rights and you are desperate, guess what? You accept this kind of jobs so that at least you can make some amount of money just to meet your bills. But what you will be doing is they will be just taking advantage of you, because they are not just paying the right amount of money to you as a student. They are not paying even the minimum wage to you. So basically what they are just doing is taking advantage of you just because you are in need. And most times, just to get around the system, what most of these employers will do is they will just pay you cash. They wouldn't pay you through the system, so that there will be a record of it. So it is important as a student, you know your rights when it comes to this, so that if somebody is offering you some amount below the minimum wage, at least you'll be able to stand your ground and ask for the right amount. Or worst case scenario, if you are fully prepared financially when you came in, you wouldn't be in a situation where you have to be taking such jobs for them to take advantage of you. Number 4 is finding accommodation. This is one struggle that I had to also go through myself when I came to Canada. I found out that it was not easy finding accommodation when you land in Canada, even if you have money to pay. I came in, and I remember before I came to Canada, I was telling some of my friends that, when I come in, the first 2 weeks I'm going to stay in an Airbnb, then I'll take time out to try and find a house where I can stay in and all that. But my friends were able to hook me up with people who were able to receive me when I came in, and they hosted me for a couple of weeks whilst I looked for accommodation. And even with all that support, trying to find accommodation was not easy. There were some houses that I would go to, there are vacancies, they will interview. The moment you say, I'm a student, you hear, I'll hear from you. And I will never hear from these people again. I went through this for multiple times, and I was surprised. I'm like, what's going on here? I asked, and I realized they thought that just because I'm an African and I'm a student coming in, I might not be able to afford the accommodation that is being offered to me. And what most landlords cannot do is kick you out of the house when you are already in it. So the best way to help protect their investment is to make sure that whoever is coming into the house at least has a means to provide rent on a monthly basis. Because when the rent is due, they wouldn't want to come chasing you around. So at this point, what I had to do was now go and pull my bank statement from Ghana so that I can show it to the landlords to let them know that, oh, I have enough money to cover my rent and I'm not going to default in any way. Even the apartment that I finally got, I had to go through a series of references, a series of interviews just to prove to the landlords that I'll be able to afford to pay for the rent. So coming in, sometimes it might not be easy to find accommodation as a new person or as an international student. So it is always advisable to make sure that you've done your necessary research, make contacts with people there, prepare the ground before you land so that possibly you can land and accommodation will be ready for you. What most people do is before they come in, they will hit WhatsApp groups from people from their communities. If it's Ghana, they will hit the Ghanaian community group. If it's Nigeria, they will hit the Nigerian community group and say who has a room to rent so that they can start talking to the people and secure the accommodation. What that one does is when he or she lands, there is a room available for you to get into. And because that person is somebody from your country, you have somebody that you can talk to. You don't now have to go and find a place that you have to furnish yourself. And it is always advisable that as a student, you find accommodation that is closer to your campus so that it can make commuting very easy for you. Because the last thing that you want to do is to be spending an hour on a bus just to get to school and an hour just to get back. There are only 24 hours in a day. And if you spend 8 hours of it sleeping, 8 hours of it in school, you will need those extra hours to work to make money. You wouldn't want to spend it sitting on a bus just to get to school and back. And to get around the accommodation issue, sometimes as a student, you can come together and rent a house where you can share between a group of friends. What that one does is it helps to cut down on the rent because there are more people sharing that kind of accommodation. I've seen situations where people rent a house and they sublet the rooms out to different people. There's been times where friends have come together, rented a house, and even the living room, there are people staying there. They do this just to make sure that they can cut down on the rent. So one other thing that you need to prepare for as a challenge when you are coming in is finding accommodation as an international student. Number 5 is homesickness. Everybody feels it, and you are going to get homesick, trust me. One of the big challenges that most people go through, especially as students, has to do with homesickness, having to leave family and friends back home and move to a new country on your own, especially at a very young age. The effect of leaving family members and friends back home can sometimes be detrimental to your mental health when you are moving to a new country. Due to lack of a support system, most students always end up being lonely or even end up feeling loneliness. But guess what? It is quite normal to miss home, and you are not the only one who is feeling it. Everyone is feeling it one way or the other. You just have to understand that this is a phase that you are going through. Everybody who has moved abroad, one way or the other, has gone through this particular phase. And I will try and share in subsequent videos how you can overcome some of these to help you settle in faster so that you can overcome some of this loneliness. My advice sometimes is help build a tribe around you. Don't try to be a loner. Try to find people who have common interests like you that you can relate to. Possibly people who are already going through the phase that you are going through so that they can share their experiences with you and help you overcome it. Don't try to be alone. I've met a lot of people who try their maximum best to try and do everything on their own because guess what? Back home, they were on their own. They've done everything on their own. They get here and they are still trying to do everything on their own. By so doing, they just end up being alone. And with that being alone comes with those loneliness. If you have left your friends back home, if you're able to get new friends here, it will help you to settle faster. If you have left your family back home, trying to build a new family here might help you settle in faster. Building a new family basically is finding people that you can trust, people that you can connect with, people that you can share your issues with, and they can help advise you one way or the other. Most times you can also try and find people like this in churches. If you're a Muslim, possibly in the mosque, you go there, you can meet people who possibly have gone through what you are going through, and they can help you overcome that form of loneliness. The truth is, like any other country, Canada has its own issues. And if you are moving here, even though it's a land of milk and honey, there are some challenges that you are going to experience. My advice is, don't let that one at least hold you back. Find ways to overcome them. These are some 5 challenges that I went through myself. Some of them I've seen people go through that I feel I should share with you, so that at least you can prepare yourself before you get here. So that in case you run into any of these challenges, you will just see it just as a roadblock that you can just jump over. And not let this one block you from your blessing. Because guess what? There is light at the end of the tunnel. And doing your research can help you prepare and adapt better when you land in this country. If you or someone you know is struggling, I will share some resources on the screen for you to at least use to find help one way or the other. There is enough help available to help you. These are some challenges that I thought you should know. If you got value out of this video, kindly hit the like button so that other people will also find this content. And if you are new here, hit the subscribe button. If you are old here and you still haven't subscribed, kindly hit the subscribe button so you can join this family. And let me hear from you the kind of challenges that you went through when you landed in Canada in the description area, so that we can all learn together. And in the comment column, let me know the kind of videos that you would like to see, so that we all learn together. Until the next video, cheers.